Today I'm going to be making scotched eggs. Now I've been wanting to try this recipe for a long time. Well, about 7 months to be exact. There's another YouTuber called That Dude Can Cook. He laid down a blueprint for scotched eggs that seemed to work pretty well. But I didn't want to do just any ordinary scotched egg, but I wanted to make something special. So I'm going to give an Asian flavoured scotched egg a try. So the first thing we need to do is get a pot of boiling water on the go. Then I'm going to carefully lower in my eggs, however many you're going to do. And then as soon as you get them in, you're going to want to set a timer for 5 minutes. Now you want to keep this water not at a super hard boil, but a boil nonetheless. After your 5 minutes is up, you want to go ahead and get your eggs out and put them straight into an ice bath. After you get your eggs in your ice bath, you want to go ahead and peel them. Now, as you can see, I got 2 eggs out of the 5 that I boiled. You might want to take that into account when you do yours. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is get your mincemeat ready. Now, you can just buy some sausages, cut the skin off, and use that, but because we're going this Asian route, you're going to flavour our own meat. So, I've got half a kilo, or just 500 grams of minced XO beef here. And to that, I'm going to add some finely chopped up, now just the white part of the spring onion, and I've got some ginger and a garlic in there as well. You also want to add 2 tablespoons of dark soy sauce. You want to add a teaspoon of vinegar powder. You also want to add half a teaspoon of Thai ginger powder. You want to add half teaspoon of MSG. And you also want to add a teaspoon of salt. Once you got all in the bowl, just want to go ahead and get it thoroughly incorporated. So, after I mixed it all up, I went ahead and I just cooked off a little patty, just so I can check to make sure everything's going to be tasting alright. And it tastes pretty damn good to me. I've just spread my meat out on a piece of parchment paper here. The goal is to encase this egg with all the meat. So, now, if you're from Scotland and you're watching this, don't hate on me too much. This is actually harder than it looks. So once you sort of get your egg enclosed with all the meat, you just want to go ahead and smooth it all out, join all those gaps together. Obviously you want the coating as even as possible all over the whole thing. So once you got something that looks like that, you go ahead and coat the rest of the eggs that survived the peeling process, and yeah, then we'll go on with the next step. After some things we learned from the first one, I've noticed that you flatten the edge around the edge out a little bit more than the center, because as you bring it in together, then you'll have a more even coating around the egg of the meat. Once you got them formed up there, you just want to go ahead and chuck a bit of plastic over the top. So we're going to go ahead and let them firm up in the fridge there for about 10 minutes. So while your meat's in the fridge firming up, this is a perfect time to go ahead and make a little dipping mayonnaise to go with it. In my container here, I've already cracked in an egg. We'll go in with a tablespoon of gochujang. We're also going to add in the vinegar powder. We'll go in with a half teaspoon of salt. We're also going to go in with a tablespoon of sesame oil. And then, in my fancy little measuring cup here, we're going to go in with the neutral oil of your choice. Which just so happens this week, I'm using some soybean. Once you got all your ingredients in there, we've done this many times before, we're going to turn the immersion blender on and then slowly pull it up until the mayonnaise is thickened. Now, I wanted it kind of thick. I like a thick mayonnaise. Some people don't. So if this is too thick for you, just add a little bit of water. Or if this is too thin for you, just add a little bit more oil and keep on whizzing. The oil will thicken it up, a bit of water will loosen it up. So I already gave it a quick taste before I put it into this little bowl here. And all I'm going to need now is a little bit more salt. So I'll go ahead and sprinkle it in and mix that in. Once you got your mayonnaise the way you want it, we'll season up the way you want it. Just to make it pop, I'm going to put a little bit of black sesame over the top. Now we'll set it aside till we're ready to use it. For the breadcrumb, I'm going to use panko, but I'm going to blitz in some seaweed with it. And also, the panko is a little bit too big, actually, for the scotched egg. So, the seaweed I'm using is actually some nori that you use for sushi. I think it's going to work just fine for this. So I've just gone ahead and super roughly chopped it. Now we'll add it all in here, and then we'll just pulse it up a couple of times just so it gets a little bit more broken down and well incorporated into the breadcrumb. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. So for my egg here, we're going to do a couple of little things. First of all, crack it in a bowl. Second of all, we're going to add a little bit of milk to it. That's just to stretch the egg to make it go further. The third thing we're going to do to this, we're going to incorporate a big dollop of miso into it. This should be pretty damn good. So, we'll go ahead and get that mixed up with a fork. As you can see, I've got my station set up now. That's just some all-purpose flour. I've got my egg with the milk and the miso all thoroughly mixed together, and the breadcrumb with the seaweed. So, this is simple enough. First in with the flour, make sure it's all coated, and we'll knock off any excess, and into the egg. We'll let any excess drip off, then into the breadcrumb. Now, usually you should use a dry hand and a wet hand, but I didn't do that, so I'm going to wash my hands real quick and then we'll come back and do the breadcrumb. Now I've got my dry hands. I'm going to give this a good coating with the breadcrumb. Obviously it didn't all get broken down with the food processor, but a good majority of it did. So just here, just make sure you're going around and getting the whole thing coated with no wet spots. And that's done. We can move that bit of paper, we'll set it on the plate, and we'll get the other one coated. Okay, so I've got my oil temp up around 170 degrees. And we're just going to lower the little parcels in, one at a time. And we're going to set a timer for about 5 minutes once they're in there. And you don't want to walk away, like, you just want to keep an eye on these. And obviously if you're doing it in a fry like this, you want to turn them. Otherwise the bottom one side will get a lot browner than the other. So go ahead and lower it in, and we'll set the timer for 5 minutes. After the 5 minutes, I've just got them out, put them on the paper towel lined plate. And I'm just going to hit them with a little bit of salt. Now you want to let these rest for about 3 or 4 minutes before you tuck into them. Obviously, as you can see, we had to cut it, to get a few good photos. And it seemed to work out pretty damn well. Even if you don't want to go through the whole trouble of making the Scotch egg, this mayonnaise is pretty damn good. Paired it with the runny yolk Scotch egg, even better.